going to be looking for some evidence of the Druim na-Alban. The Druim na-Alban is the ridge between the Kingdom of Dalriada, which is roughly equivalent to modern Argyll, and basically the rest of Northern Britain. It is mentioned in a Domnan's biography of St Columba, which was written in the 7th century, and he wrote that Columba, when he was going to go and visit the king of the Northern Picts, had to cross the dorsum Britanniae, Latin for basically the spine of Britain. So historians have been after this geographical barrier, I guess, and ever since. In Gaelic it's the Druim na-Alban. Some people kind of speculate that it's more of a kind of a catch-all term just for the ridge of hills that I guess separate easy travel from the glens of Argyll with those of the rest of the Highlands. So pinning it down perhaps to a specific ridgeline or a set of hills, to their mind, is difficult if not impossible. However, scholarship from David Dorn and Nina Henry here in Druim, which is supported by Tim Clarkson, suggests that perhaps actually this ridgeline can be plotted. It can be marked on a map. We can do that through the use of the Gaelic place names for hills, ridges, watershed valleys that allow us to possibly pinpoint a barrier or a border that marked the boundary of ancient Dalriada. Now, Nina Henry and David Dorn plotted this boundary as terminating in Cowal, which is exciting. And it's marked out by several hills, different locations in the peninsula that contain the place name in Gaelic boundary, Creechia. There's also references to foreigners and such like, which in Gaelic suggests that some other group was on the other side or occupying these terrain features. So the Druim na-Alban can be plotted certainly up round the top of Loch Lomond. We have up kind of Crean Way, Tyne Drum, which means the house on the ridge. There's evidence there that the barrier certainly went through that watershed between west and east. And it makes sense that in his trip from Iona, where he would have landed and probably made his way up the Great Glen, if this barrier continued further up, he would have had to cross that to get down into the Great Glen and work his way up towards Inverness, where this King of the Picts was. So today I am climbing the ridge between Glen and Glen Massan in Cowal, starting at, I guess, the kind of southeastern end, Ballygowan, the place of the blacksmith. Kind of following this forest secretion trail here up to the bottom end of the ridgeline, and I am going to work my way along the top of the ridge to a stack called Sgorach Mor, which means the Great Scourge. Now, on the Mor website, plotted by Nina Henry and David Dorn, is a potentially quite ancient cairn with a standing stone erected on it. And this is potentially a boundary marker at the edge of Dalriada, potentially the brittonic kingdom of Alt Clut to the east of here. Now they point to the fact that this boundary stone faces a similar boundary stone erected on the top of Carn Ban on the other side of Glen Tarzan. So hopefully we're going to get up there, find it, and have a look for the evidence. Look at that ridge line up above me. Now that's the ridge I'm wanting to get up onto, but you can almost imagine 7th century watchers, guards sitting up on that ridge line, stoically watching strangers entering their valley, wary of attack, ready to swoop down and pounce themselves. What a scene. Oh, it's a tough climb. The fire break, you maybe see beneath me, has really grown in. It's like mapping this as a walk to try. The OS map showed there's a fire break here, but it's quite tough to get up onto this ridge. There aren't many, well, no identifiable trails certainly, after the forestry track kind of gives out. So I followed the forestry track as high up as I could go, plumped for a fire break, so got through the woods. But it's a tough gig. And you see, all overgrown. And this is where I'm going. But I'm hoping once I'm up at the top of the ridge, we'll be much easier going until we get to the stack at the end. There's the Holy Loch, the River Clyde, the edge of the Noon down below. I've worked my way up this quarry here. There's a forestry track along the bottom of the gully, and then this stuff should be a fire break, but isn't anymore. Looking up, here's the ridge line on the other side of the quarry, and there's the ridge I'm going for. Up here. Bit of a walk to go. I made the ridge line. Jeez, oh. Now this is Corrie, you see just behind me over here, Corrie Cheetich. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It means a mystery cauldron. In fact, you can see round about me right behind over there, the clouds are just touching the top of the hills round about here. Today it looks like the clouds are maybe coming down to about 600 metres, maybe 650. And this is a good day. On the average day I can imagine the clouds just swirling round this hilltop round about me. So you see down there, there's a Holy Loch down behind me, and Sandbank just at the head of the loch. I'm working my way along the ridge now. I've made about not quite the top of the ridge, but I'm along the end of it. It's about another 40 metres worth of height to go until it kind of tops out. I'm going to just walk along that now until I get to Sgorach Mor along at the far end, which is up there behind me. Fingers crossed. And the hill just down there in front of me is Loch. That overlooks Strath Eck, this green valley just down here at the base of Loch. Now if the na-Alban was indeed in place and did mark a boundary, then along this ridge line up here that I'm about to walk along, somewhere over here would have been this na-Alban, and it would have meant that this land over here, it would have been owned by Alt Clut, the Kingdom of the Britons. This could represent their frontier lands. And then if I scan over this direction, over the ridge line and over here, that kind of misted summit over there is called Leacan nan Gael, which means the kind of bald summit of the foreigner. That possibly hints at what's going on here. That might also be part of this boundary line, this na-Alban. In which case, the hills in the background over there represent the eastern extent of Dalriada. So this here in Cowal could be St Columba's na-Alban, or the southern extent of it. The boundary between two ancient kingdoms. And there it is for the first time. There, Sgorach Mor. It's about a kilometre away at the moment. You know, you see from this distance, it looks like it's going to stand quite proud above the ridge. Looking forward to getting onto it. Going here, it's pretty stodgy, it's a bit boggy, there's no trail. Views are amazing though. You can imagine if this was a beacon hill on the border between these two kingdoms. The views that would be commanded by the soldiers the watchers who'd have been stationed up on top of that hill to light their beacon fire. In the distance, you can just see the wind farm at the back of Glen. Here's the Tarzan Dam, Loch Tarzan, Loch Ridden behind it. If we pan over, there's today's target, Sgorach Mor, the Great Scourge. As you approach it, you can see just what an imposing sight this is. It has such a view of the landscape round about it. Now this is a beacon hill. Now, much like Ben Lomond, which translates roughly as the hill of the beacon, Sgorach Mor sits like a pyramid on top of the ridge and above a lot of the landscape round about. When we get up there, we should be able to see Dumbarton Rock off to the east, should be able to see Papsdura off to the west. You can see for miles, you can see Ben Lomond as well if the cloud isn't down too low about it. And the point of beacon hills, we think, is obviously, how's a beacon? It could send a warning of any attack or encroachment across the kingdom's perimeter. A signal sent from Sgorach Mor would be seen on Ben Lomond and Alt Clut. Alt Clut was the centre, it was the capital of the Kingdom of the Britons in Western Scotland, or Northern Britain as it was at that time. And this represents their western boundary, the northwestern boundary. So within minutes of any form of attack, coming from Dalriada possibly over to the west, being spotted, those at the capital, the centre, would know, would be able to respond. So this is a phenomenal network for protection for the kingdom. The only thing is, some poor soul would have to be on that for much of the year. And obviously keeping a beacon dry, being there to light it, it wouldn't be pleasant. Not pleasant at all, especially in Scottish weather. Here we go. So I've covered the saddle of the ridge. Look behind me. And up here now, Sgorach Mor, in search of the cairn. Go to on camera. This is the stone that's registered on Canmore as the standing stone in the cairn that's sited on the top of Sgorach Mor. Now it's difficult to tell the date of when this was erected, although if it is a marker for the line of the Druim na-Alban frontier, it's said that the flat face, just coming up round here, of our cairn, faces Cairnban, which is on the opposite side of the valley, possibly marking where the frontier continues. Now I'm going to use our cairn stone as a guide, and in the distance you can see the hill on the ridge over there where the similar stone sits facing this one. Now what can we see from this vantage point? If this is a beacon hill and they had watches up here, over to the right over here, this hilltop on the ridgeline is Cairnban. Now there's a cairn on there which mirrors this one, which could either be the opposite side of the boundary or it could be another marker for its continuation along the opposite ridgeline. That could be Dalriada and the Glen to the left of here, whilst we here would be on Alt Clut land on the edge of the territory of the Alt Clut Britons. If we follow this ridge along here, this is a Sgorach Glen in the centre, working its way, if you can see where I'm pointing, working its way up there. Now the end of that ridge line, working its way to the north, ends in a hill called Sron Creechia, or the nose of the boundary. It's overlooking Stracar and Strathnan Lub, following the route of the Cowal. Working my way along to the right over here, lost in the mist a bit today, but you should be able to see the pyramid peak of Ben Lomond. Now that's another beacon hill. So there's a clear line of sight between the watchers on this hill and the watchers on Ben Lomond, who would have had eyesight over the northern end of Alt Clut's territorial boundary. Working our way further round again, that's the River Clyde, and in the distance, on the western bank, if I zoom in a little, that is Dumbarton Rock, the centre of the kingdom of Alt Clut. Now therefore there's a direct line of sight between the northwestern boundary right here and the centre of the domain over there. They can signal from one to the other in a moment. Now if I zoom back out again and pan round, looks like the rain is coming in, great. This is Glen, and the hill about to disappear into the mist is Leacan nan Gall, the bald summit of the foreigners. Now Cowal was fully inhabited by Gaelic speakers by the end of the 13th century, so this name in Gaelic hints that it was once possessed by the Britons, or possibly another group who came along a little later, but that's a story for another video. Then we circle back round and we can see Glen Tarzan, with the modern Tarzan Dam forming Loch Tarzan, with Loch Striven behind it and Loch Ridden in the distance behind that. And then here we come back round again to our cairn. So, a beacon site on top of this hill would have been a phenomenal location for watching the progress of any invaders approaching up the Glen. From Glen Tarzan here, invaders from Dalriada, or coming down here through Sgorach Glen, or even those making their way over one of the hilltop passes from Glen over this way. Likewise, if any trouble was going down to the rear over in Strath Echig, back here, smoke rising from the valley floor, if the raiders burned anything, would give away their location. Signals could then be relayed along the valley floor up to here, and then reported back to Alt Clut, the capital, up the river. It's an excellent, excellent vantage point, although not a very warm one. Sgorach Mor offers an amazing day out, an amazing walk, and just fantastic views of the landscape of Cowal. To get an idea of the cairn here and what this part of the world might have been like in the early medieval period, please do come see yourself and give it a go. It's an excellent day out. If you like what you saw today, please hit the subscribe button below. Thanks for watching.